we got in the tunnel mid-late April, opposed to 2nd of January for everybody else. But more than that, everybody else would have been working on their CFD and general layout and mechanical layout way before us. So we started on the back foot.
Adrian Newey is standing in the Aston Martin garage at the 2026 Australian Grand Prix, and his car cannot finish the race. Not because of a crash, not because of a tactical mistake, because his driver's hands are going numb. A two-time world champion and the most celebrated car designer in Formula One history are sharing the same team, the same car, the same 2026 season, and somehow Aston Martin arrived at Australia barely able to run 25 consecutive laps without risking permanent nerve damage to Fernando Alonso's hands. Lawrence Stroll called this partnership the last piece of the jigsaw. Alonso said David Coulthard called it an own goal. And the 2026 regulations, they made every single problem they already had twice as hard to fix. What most people are still missing is the specific chain of decisions, delays, and missteps that turned what looked like Formula One's greatest hiring moment into the most expensive misfire on the grid.
Now, going back to Aston Martin, and as we know, they've had a really difficult start to 2026 with them at the back of the grid. And well, just after a few weeks of this season, it's been widely reported that Newey is set to step back from the team principal role and focus on being a managing technical partner at Aston Martin.
Newey spent decades at Williams, McLaren, and Red Bull collecting constructors' championships the way other people collect parking tickets, and his departure from Red Bull left every major team scrambling to court him. Ferrari wanted him, Williams wanted him, Alpine and Audi were both circling. What Lawrence Stroll offered that nobody else could match was a genuine shareholding and a true technical partnership, not just a senior design role with a fancy title. Newey confirmed it himself, telling reporters that Stroll's passion, enthusiasm, and commitment offer of partnership and shareholding made it very clear and obvious which direction he would go. That framing matters because the deal Stroll structured gave Newey far more than a salary. It handed him a stake in the team's future and eventually the keys to run it entirely. Alonso signed a multi-year contract, keeping him at Aston Martin through 2026, directly aligned with the Newey and Honda project. And he did it with full knowledge that the payoff would take time.
I would say that it was more an inspiration, and I think thanks to Adrian and his talent and cars, I think we all got better as a driver, as engineers, teams, we all had to raise the bar thanks to him to be able to compete. And I think now it's an incredible day for the team.
What made his commitment unusual was that he also issued a very public warning alongside it. At the Singapore Grand Prix weekend in late September 2024, Alonso admitted to reporters that he doesn't have time to wait too long for Newey's impact to materialize, and he urged the team not to let excitement about 2026 swallow the work still needed in the present. His words carried real weight. It will take time, and that is something I may not have in my career. For a driver in his 40s, burning a season waiting for a promise to pay off carries genuine consequences, and Alonso knew exactly what he was saying. He pushed Aston Martin internally as well, telling them 2026 is in our heads, but 2025 we need to shake things a little bit. What we're doing right now is not good enough. That tension between the long-term Newey vision and the short-term reality of a struggling car sat quietly inside the team for months, right up until it became impossible to ignore. Stroll's vision for Aston Martin was always bigger than just hiring one genius engineer.
Now, while Aston Martin owner Lawrence Stroll issued a rare statement clarifying that the team does not run with the traditional team principal role, the leadership of Aston Martin remains a point of discussion.
The Honda Works partnership gave Aston Martin a full factory-level relationship starting from the 2026 season, with Honda supplying the RA626H power unit built around new hybrid regulations that split power roughly 50-50 between combustion and electrical systems, all running on 100% sustainable fuel. On the 19th of January 2026, Honda and Aston Martin flew senior executives to Tokyo for a formal launch event, unveiling the RA626H alongside the AMR26 livery, with Formula One President Stefano Domenicali in attendance alongside Stroll, Honda Racing Corporation President Koji Watanabe, and Honda President Toshihiro Mibe. Stroll described the Honda deal as One of the last parts of the jigsaw puzzle slotting into place for the team's ambitions, and from the outside the picture looked genuinely complete.
So Fernando is of the feeling that he can't do more than 25 laps consecutively before he will risk permanent nerve damage to his hands. Alonso is of the opinion that he can't do more than 15 laps.
The greatest living car designer, a two-time world champion, a brand new factory, a works power unit, and a regulation reset supposed to compress the entire field. None of that made what came next any less damaging. Here is where the story starts to fracture. When Formula One's 2026 aerodynamic testing restrictions lifted on the 1st of January 2025, every team on the grid got straight to work running 2026 spec models in their wind tunnels and CFD simulations. Aston Martin could not do the same. Their brand new CoreWeave wind tunnel at the AMR Technology campus was not yet fully operational. Newey confirmed the timeline himself, and the numbers are stark. "We didn't get a model of the 2026 car into the wind tunnel until mid-April," he told reporters, whereas most, if not all of our rivals would have had a model in the wind tunnel from the moment the 2026 aero testing ban ended at the beginning of January. Mid-April versus early January means Aston Martin began aerodynamic development 4 months behind every other team on the grid.
And said he still did not really understand why the vibrations were not present on Friday. Crack reckons at the next race in Miami, we can do a step that we are not speaking about it anymore.
In a year when the regulations changed so dramatically that 4 months of lost wind tunnel time translated directly into a car that arrived at preseason testing fundamentally underdeveloped. Newey's own assessment was direct. "We've started from behind in truth. It's been a very compressed timescale. The decision to wait for their new tunnel rather than use an existing facility from January was a choice that compounded across every subsequent step of the car's development, and by the time anyone could measure the true cost, the season was already underway." Preseason testing in 2026 featured a 5-day shakedown at Barcelona, and Aston Martin's situation there told the whole story before a competitive wheel had turned. The AMR26 came together so late that the car had to be flown from Birmingham to Girona to reach the test circuit in time, and once there, the team managed to run only 2 of the 3 permitted testing days, completing significantly fewer laps than virtually every other team at the circuit.
That vibration into the chassis is causing a few reliability problems, mirrors falling off, taillights falling off, all that sort of thing. But the much more significant problem with that is that vibration is transmitted ultimately into the driver's fingers.
Media analysis from that testing period described Aston Martin as potentially being around 4 seconds per lap off the frontrunners in long-run data, and German automotive publication Amus characterized the situation bluntly as Aston in crisis. Ahead of the AMR26 livery launch in early February, Newey acknowledged that the late start was bound to cost the team, and that framing proved accurate almost immediately after the opening races began. And this is where it gets worse. What separated Aston Martin's 2026 crisis from an ordinary bad car situation was not the pace deficit or the development delay. Those were survivable. What nobody expected was that the Honda RA626H would generate vibrations so severe that they posed a direct threat to the physical health of both drivers. Now, the 2026 regulations made all of this significantly harder to solve. Formula One's new rules demanded that teams completely rethink how the engine and the car talk to each other, because the electrical side of the power unit became far more powerful than it had ever been before, and packaging everything together inside a new chassis design left almost no margin for error.
Say new parts always brings a risk, so you need to consider that when you make reliability decisions. The situation was more confusing as Alonso didn't seem to know that the fix had been removed for Saturday. Even after the race, Alonso reported the vibrations were better than on Saturday, despite nothing changing on the car.
Honda Racing Corporation President Koji Watanabe admitted publicly that the new regulations were quite challenging and acknowledged that Honda's gap in Formula One activity between 2021 and their return had affected how prepared they were for the demands of this new era. The result was that when vibration problems emerged, the new rules had essentially created a situation where the engine and the car's structure were interacting in ways neither team fully anticipated, and Watanabe confirmed it directly, stating that only the power unit cannot solve the problem. Aston Martin and Honda were dealing with a regulation-driven integration failure, not just a straightforward engine fix, and every team that spent 4 months longer in the wind tunnel had 4 months more to catch and solve exactly this kind of problem before the season began. Newey described the problem publicly ahead of the Australian Grand Prix in early March 2026, and the detail he shared stopped the paddock cold. The much more significant problem, he told journalists, is that the vibration is transmitted ultimately into the driver's fingers. Fernando feels he can't do more than 25 laps consecutively before he will risk permanent nerve damage to his hands. Lance is of the opinion that he can only do 15 laps before that threshold. 15 laps in a race that runs to around 50 or 60 meant one of Aston Martin's drivers couldn't safely complete even a third of the race distance. The vibrations also attacked the car itself, with mirrors detaching mid-race, taillights falling off due to chassis oscillations, and battery casings cracking under the stress transmitted through the structure. Engineers from both Aston Martin and Honda worked to reduce vibration reaching the battery enough to prevent terminal reliability failures, but the fundamental source of the problem remained unresolved through the opening rounds. Alonso is a driver who stayed in Formula One specifically because he still believes he can win again, and he put that belief on hold to commit to this project. What he found himself doing instead at the start of 2026 was managing a countdown in his own hands, feeling numbness spreading through his fingers lap by lap, and nursing a car that Aston Martin had quietly pre-planned to retire early even if nothing mechanically broke. Ahead of Australia, the team made internal arrangements to impose strict lap limits on both drivers as a direct health precaution, and Alonso described the sensation of the vibrations leaving his hands and feet numb mid-lap. That physical reality, combined with a car that arrived 4 months behind rivals in aerodynamic development, produced Aston Martin's worst opening to a season in years, with the team struggling for both pace and the ability to string together full race distance runs without intervention. On the 26th of April, 2026, David Coulthard went public with an assessment that cut through the careful language Aston Martin had been using to describe their situation. Speaking about the decision to promote Newey to team principal at the start of 2026, Coulthard called it an own goal and stated flatly that it was never going to work. Coulthard's verdict carried weight precisely because he spent most of his career working alongside Newey at Williams, McLaren, and Red Bull. A team principal in Formula One manages sponsors, handles media, navigates paddock politics, runs a large workforce, and operates as the public face of an organization under constant pressure. Coulthard's argument was never that Newey lacked talent. His point was that those specific demands have never been what Newey pursued or excelled at, and combining them with the already enormous task of designing a car from scratch under new regulations was always going to split his focus somewhere it couldn't afford to be split. The own goal label stung for another reason too, because Newey became the 4th different team principal at Aston Martin in just 5 years. 4 team principals in 5 seasons signals something deeper than a single bad personnel decision. It reflects an organization that keeps searching for a solution it hasn't found yet, and handing a 60-something design legend the managerial and political responsibilities of running a Formula One team, however well-intentioned, only added more instability to a team already carrying a 4-month development gap and an unresolved power unit crisis. Reliable reports from inside the paddock suggest Aston Martin is moving toward returning Newey to a purely technical role, removing the team principal responsibilities that Coulthard and others identified as a drain on his strengths. Lawrence Stroll continues to publicly back Newey's long-term commitment to the project, and both Aston Martin and Honda leadership have emphasized that this partnership runs across multiple seasons, not just one difficult year. Joint engineering work between the two organizations targets the vibration source directly rather than just managing its effects, and the team expects conditions to improve as updates arrive through the season. Newey, for his part, stated before the year began that he was determined not to dilute his design focus regardless of the management questions swirling around him, and his long-term track record of building championship-winning cars from a clean sheet remains the core reason Stroll paid what he paid and structured the deal the way he did. This is the story of a bet that was never small. Lawrence Stroll built a new factory, hired the greatest designer alive, secured a Honda Works partnership, kept Fernando Alonso in the building, and launched everything together in 2026 with a set of regulations that were supposed to give every team a fresh start. What nobody fully accounted for was the 4 months lost before a single model reached the wind tunnel, the vibrations that turned a Honda power unit into a health concern, and the management decision that put a legendary designer into a role built for a completely different kind of person. Alonso warned in 2024 that he didn't have time to wait, and by April 2026, David Coulthard was saying the same thing from the outside. The real cost of the own goal at Aston Martin was never just one bad start to one season. It was the gap between what this team promised and what they actually delivered to the two people who bet their careers on it. Drop a like if this video gave you something to think about, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next from Formula Girls.